Think of the coldest night you've ever been through. The kind of cold that seeps through the window panes and has you burrowing so deep under the covers you can barely breathe. Now, take away your insulated walls, your electric blanket, and your thermostat. The temperature drops to -20. The wind is howling like a wolf. And all you have is a wooden hut and whatever you can find in the frozen world outside. This wasn't some extreme survival show. For a Viking in the dead of winter, this was just Tuesday, while armies from supposedly more advanced civilizations were literally freezing to death in their stone castles. The Norse people of Scandinavia weren't just surviving these nights, they were thriving. So how did they do it? What was their secret? It wasn't magic, and it wasn't just being tough. They had an ingenious multi-part system for sleeping that modern science is only now starting to fully appreciate. The secret is in the layers of engineering, materials, and community they built into every single night. So forget the horned helmets and the berserker rage for a minute. The real story of Viking survival is far more clever, and it starts where every day ended, in their beds. Before a Viking even thought about their bed, their first shield against the cold was the home itself, the iconic longhouse. From the outside, a longhouse might just look like a simple, turf-covered mound, like it grew right out of the landscape. But that was by design. This was a brilliant piece of survival engineering. First up, the walls. In places where timber was scarce, like Iceland and Greenland, Vikings built walls out of massive blocks of peat, sometimes up to 2 feet thick. Peat isn't just dirt. It's a dense, organic material that works as a fantastic natural insulator. These turf walls sat on a stone foundation, which stopped the wooden frame from rotting and blocked the damp, frozen ground from creeping in. Where wood was plentiful, the walls were still multi-layered, often sandwiching packed turf, clay, and even moss between an inner and outer plank wall. Then you have the roof. Longhouse roofs were low and heavy, layered with sod and turf over a timber frame. This did two things. The weight helped muffle the sound of those brutal winter winds, and the thick sod provided incredible insulation from above. And when snow fell, it wasn't a problem. It was a bonus. The snow would pile up and become another super effective layer of insulation, trapping all that precious heat inside. And the floor? Often just pounded earth. But even this was part of the plan. Many longhouses were dug slightly into the ground, a basic form of geothermal heating that used the stable temperature of the earth to keep the inside much warmer, sometimes by a difference of 70 degrees Fahrenheit from the air outside. But the beating heart of this warm cocoon was the central hearth. A long rectangular fire pit ran right down the middle of the hall. It was for light, it was for cooking, but most importantly, it was the main source of heat. They rarely had a chimney. Instead, a simple hole in the roof let some smoke out, while the rest just collected up in the rafters. It sounds awful for your lungs, and it was, but that layer of smoke acted like another thermal blanket, trapping the warm air below it, and even helping to preserve the meats they hung from the beams. The longhouse wasn't just a house. It was a finely tuned machine built to fight the cold. A roaring fire is great, but firewood was a precious resource. You couldn't just pop outside in a midnight blizzard to chop some more. The Vikings knew the fire wasn't meant to blaze all night. The goal wasn't a huge flame. It was managing heat efficiently for a long time. And this is where they turned their hearth into a kind of thermal battery. One of their cleverest tricks was almost certainly using stones. We know from other ancient cultures that this was a common technique. Throughout the day, they would place large, dense stones near or in the hearth, letting them soak up the heat for hours. When it was time for bed and the fire was dying down, they could wrap these heated stones in cloth or animal skins and place them under sleeping platforms or at the foot of the bed. They were ancient hot water bottles, slowly radiating a steady, gentle heat through the coldest part of the night. It was a simple, brilliant way to store the day's energy for when they needed it most. They also mastered the art of banking the fire. Before bed, they push the glowing embers into a tight pile and cover them with a thick layer of ash. This starved the coals of oxygen, stopping them from burning out completely. The fire would go dormant, a core of heat preserved until morning. At sunrise, all it took was a little poke, a few dry twigs, and a good strong puff of air to bring the flames roaring back to life. It saved fuel, and it meant the longhouse never had to go completely cold. With the house as warm as it could get, the next problem was the bed itself. The ground, even the packed earth floor of a longhouse, is a massive heat sink. If you lie on it, it will suck the warmth right out of your body. The Viking solution was simple and brilliant. Get off the ground. Along the walls of the longhouse, they built raised wooden platforms or benches. During the day, they were for sitting and working. At night, they were the foundation for their beds. This simple elevation created a crucial gap of air between the sleeper and the cold floor, drastically cutting down on heat loss. But they took it a step further. For the head of the household or anyone with a bit more status, the sleeping setup was even better: the enclosed bed box. This was basically a tiny wooden room built on the platform, with 3 walls and a curtain for a door. Inside this small space, a person's own body heat and breath would quickly warm the air, creating a cozy microclimate shielded from any drafts in the longhouse. It's the exact same principle modern campers use with bivy bags, proof that good ideas never get old. Archaeological finds, like the textiles from the Oseberg ship, suggest they used heavy wool or linen curtains for this, giving them both life-saving warmth and a rare moment of privacy in a crowded home. This is where it all comes together. The real genius of the Viking sleep system. It wasn't about one thick blanket. It was a carefully built, multi-layered system where every single piece had a specific job to do. It started with the base layer, right on the wooden platform. This was a thick pile of dried hay or straw. Its job was to create loft thousands of tiny air pockets that trapped air and stopped the cold from the wood from reaching them. This had to be changed out regularly to keep it fluffy and to keep pests from moving in. On top of the straw came the mattress, which was usually animal skins, like sheepskins or reindeer hides, placed fur side up. This did 2 crucial things. The leather side acted as a moisture barrier, and the dense fur trapped even more air, adding a soft, warm layer of insulation. The wealthier you were, the nicer the furs, maybe even sable, fox, or bear. Next, the blankets. And here, one material was king: wool. Vikings were masters of wool. Archaeologists have found Viking-era wool that was woven so densely it was practically windproof and water-resistant. Most importantly, wool keeps you warm even when it gets damp of vital quality in a humid, smoky longhouse. They didn't just use one blanket. They layered multiple thick wool cloaks and blankets, creating even more heat-trapping air pockets. Often, these were the same heavy cloaks they wore all day. Why make 2 when one will do the job? Finally, the pajamas. Vikings didn't get undressed for bed in the winter. They wore multiple layers of their wool and linen clothing, tunics, leggings, and thick wool socks right into bed. This wasn't laziness. It was a wearable sleeping bag. The final layer of personal insulation that trapped heat right against the body and kept fingers and toes from getting frostbite. The last piece of the Viking sleep system wasn't a thing at all. It was other people. Privacy was a weird concept and a dangerous luxury in a Scandinavian winter. Entire families, along with their servants and any guests, all slept side by side on the long platforms. This wasn't just social. It was a survival strategy based on pure physics. A single person gives off about the same amount of heat as an old 100-watt light bulb. When you get 15 or 20 people sleeping in the same space, their collective body heat actually raises the temperature of the whole sleeping area. There was a clear logic to how they arranged themselves. The most vulnerable people, babies, the elderly, the sick, were placed in the middle of the group, shielded from drafts and kept warm by the bodies around them. It was a natural security system against both the cold and any other threat that might come in the night. And in many longhouses, this communal warmth even included their most valuable assets, their livestock. One end of the building was often a shelter for cattle, sheep, and goats during the winter. It might sound gross to sleep a few feet away from a cow, but that cow was a living, breathing space heater, and its body heat helped warm the whole building. When the alternative is freezing to death, the smell of animals is a pretty small price to pay. So, how did Vikings sleep through the winter without freezing? They didn't just grit their teeth and bear the cold. They engineered an entire system to defeat it. It started with the longhouse, a fortress designed to trap heat and block the wind. It continued with their smart use of fire, turning stones into thermal batteries that kept them warm long after the embers died down. They got themselves off the frozen ground and created personal microclimates with bed boxes and curtains. They perfected a multi-layer bedding system of straw, skins, and wool that would make any modern survivalist jealous. And they used the most reliable heat source they had, each other. The story of Viking survival isn't about reckless brutes. It's a story of intelligence, observation, and a deep practical understanding of the world around them. They knew how heat worked, what materials insulated best, and that community was the ultimate shield against the dark and the cold. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the best technology isn't about inventing something new, but about mastering the world that's already right in front of you.